Good afternoon. Week 8 DFS Jam. I'm Peter Overzet here on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel. Very excited about today's show. Very excited about this slate. I finally sniffed the top of the leaderboard in week 8. Finished third in the fullback dive. That's the $25 5 max contest up on Underdog. I actually wrote about it in my column today, which is live now on the site. Might actually do a little screen share here so you guys can see some of the topics. I'll drop that into the chat as well, so you guys can check that out when you get a second. Got a lot of my early research already done here on the slate. Let me get my my screen all situated here, and I'll go ahead and drop this into the chat as well. I also got the wheel ready here for some ideas for our draft. If you guys are new to this stream here on Underdog or on Fantasy Life, I just draft Underdog teams for about an hour, talk through some strategy, put some fun prompts on the wheel as well to kind of push us into maybe some unique builds that aren't necessarily tethered to ADP. But let me drop this in the chat here. See, we got my guy, Pat Moore, filtering in GM. The topics in the article this week, small field strategy tweaks, my favorite stack in week 8, the best running back sleepers, and a sneaky vomit stack. But I thought real quick before we start drafting, we could take a look at this lineup. And the reason I wrote it up wasn't just to victory lap me finally cashing in a contest this year, but also to talk through some of the strategic tweaks we should be making in small field tournaments. And the fullback dive only has 1,128 entrants. And to give you some perspective on that size relative to the Battle Royale this week, it has 48,156 entrants. So almost 50 times as big as the fullback dive, which means we need to be kind of calibrating our strategies accordingly. And one of the main things that I consider in these small field contests, way more than the big Battle Royale, is correlation. In the big Battle Royale, often aiming for perfection, trying to get the highest scoring players at each position. But in these smaller field contests, you can lean into correlation and essentially say, hey, can I just get one thing right and have this lineup do well? And so this team was a Colts double stack. It had Daniel Jones at 8.5% ownership. It had Jonathan Taylor, who of course was the 101 on the slate, 100% ownership. And then Tyler Warren, the tight end 1, tight end 2 on the slate. Sorry guys, having a little issues with my my camera today. If that's popping in and out, I'll try to get that fixed. And then I did a bring back with Keenan Allen on this team as well. Keenan Allen only 6.91% in this contest. So essentially in this lineup, I only had to get one thing right. And that one thing was, hey, if this game goes nuts, then this lineup is going to do well. There was actually another interesting element to this lineup. I'm going to switch over to my other cam for right now, just because it's giving me less trouble. So you get to see my my old webcam here. But the other element here was this team had Chris Olave, and you can see this little arrow next to it. That means it was a swap. I didn't initially draft Chris Olave. I actually took Deebo Samuel on this team. Deebo Samuel was a guy I was targeting heavily last week in my drafts. He had an ADP around 20, and I thought the risk reward for him playing or not playing was worth taking on, specifically because the swap options were guys like Chris Olave, like Keenan Allen. And so I had set up my swap ranks to go Chris Olave, Michael Pittman, Romeo Doubs, Keenan Allen. And on this team, getting swapped from Deebo Samuel to Chris Olave worked out very well as he scored 24.3 points. But I think the moral of the story here with this lineup is how little you can get right in these smaller field contests. One game, 4 players from that game, and then the only other 2 one-off positions, Chris Olave, who was the swap, and Javonte Williams, who scored 18.3 points. This team was actually in second place until the very last play of that Broncos and Giants game, where Bo Nix connected with Cortland Sutton for a pretty big, 25-yard gain there right at the end, and that bumped me down into third place. But I think a good note there as far as altering your strategies based on the contest size. Yeah, so this is a good comment here from Pat Moore in that the Battle Royale is smaller this week. We've had a couple weeks in a row now where there's been some overlay in the contest, which basically means the prize pool is guaranteed. And so if the entire contest doesn't fill, those prizes are still paid out, and Underdog is essentially on the hook for the leftover fees that they didn't recuperate. And so, of course, Underdog then has to act accordingly, and they have to size these contests down. So this is the first week where we do not have a $50,000 top prize, still 40,000. I don't think anyone is turning their nose up to that, but there's a trickle down effect to all of it. You know, in previous weeks, 10th place was $5,000, 10% of first place. This week it is 2,500. Which is way less than 10% of first there. So there's a trickle down. All of the prizes have gotten smaller, but in tandem with that, the contest is smaller too. I believe we were over 60,000 entries in the previous weeks, and now we're at, 48,156. So this is still a large field contest. This is still the largest contest on the site. So I guess I would say, Pat, I'm not altering my strategies basically any differently based on the payout structure. It's just a little bit of a bummer to not have that 50K top prize. I don't think it's going to impact, people's desire to draft in at 40,000 versus 50,000. But, when we all hop in these drafts, we want to be competing for the biggest prizes possible. So I certainly get being a little sad about that. But here's what we can do. We can fill this contest this week, and then who knows, maybe they'll make it a little bit bigger going forward. What's up, Steven? How we doing? What's up, Ramsey? Also, you know what, guys? We are big time now on this show, and we actually have a sponsor here, and I need to tell you guys about Xfinity, which you can see down here. And if you guys call yourself a sports fan, you got to have Xfinity. All the games, all in one place. They have every pro football game and over 1,000 college games, highlights and alerts, all in one place. You can build a multi-view to watch 4 games at once. In the Xfinity fan view includes live scores, odds, stats, all in one place, personalized to you. There's enhanced 4K, Xfinity enhanced 4K. It looks incredible. There's also a voice remote. Just say football to access all of these features. Imagine all of your football all in one place. Easy. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Restrictions do apply. New residential customers only. Taxes and fees extra and subject to change. There you go. Check out Xfinity, guys. All right, let's talk a little bit about this slate, and we can pull it up here and do a little rundown. Some weeks I kind of go game by game. I think just kind of doing an overview of some of these positions can give us a good sense of the slate. I think in previous weeks, what's interesting to me is generally quarterback has been the position I find the deepest. And this week is fairly deep. There are some of these guys after QB6 that I like. That cutoff is Dak Prescott. So, Daniel Jones, Drake May, Jackson Dart, Caleb Williams, even a little bit of Flacco interest, I don't mind. But I actually think running back is the deepest position this week, which surprises me because up until this point, that has not been the case. And I wrote about this in the column here, but Javonte Williams, even starting down here with him at RB10, he's getting a revenge game. He has a monster workload. No one, threatening him for touches. And I think this is going to be the game of the week, this Denver and Dallas game. So even starting with him, Breece Hall, I know no one wants anything to do with him after he burned us all last week, but he is going to have an elite workload. And this is one of, if not the friendliest matchup. The Cincinnati Bengals give up the biggest boost to opposing running backs. You have DeAndre Swift, who's coming off of back-to-back RB5, RB6 finishes. Baltimore is a top 5 defense for giving up the most points to opposing running backs. You have Rachaad White, who's going to have an elite workload against the Saints. And so just this pocket here, I would also shout out Alvin Kamara and Ramondre Stevenson, 2 backs who are going to dominate the touches for their team with no additional competition. And I know those matchups aren't quite as attractive. Kamara versus Tampa Bay, Ramondre versus Cleveland, but even both of those guys are at home and should get goal line carries. So this is one of the weeks where I really like the scrolls at running back. And kind of at the flip side, I feel like wide receiver is a little more top heavy this week, and the scrolls are a little harder to come by at wide receiver. I mean, you're really quickly into Khalil Shakir, Tez Johnson, Marvin Mims territory. So that's just kind of one interesting macro note about this slate. Tight end, I'd say, is fairly balanced. You got Tyler Warren, George Kittle would be my tight end 2 on the week. Some solid guys in the mid range with Ferguson, Goddard, Pitts, and then some interesting scrolls as well. And then the other thing we should probably talk about are a few of the injury situations to note. I would say the biggest one this week is Lamar Jackson. He did return to practice yesterday. Now, it wasn't really a real practice in that he was just kind of jogging around doing some light throwing. So we'll have to see how that progresses. But you look at the total for this game, still has an over under of 50, which strongly indicates Lamar's going to play. So I've been trying to get as much Lamar as I can. I've done about 12 to 13 drafts, I believe, is what I've done so far. And I think I have Lamar on about half of those, getting him at pick 16, pick 18, pick 19 in some cases. Because if he is ruled in, we're going to see his ADP move up closer to the 9 to 10 range. So I've been trying to get combos with Lamar Jackson that I think will be unavailable later this week if he is ruled in. The other situation I'm keeping tabs on is Nico Collins. He had the concussion on Monday night. He's probably not going to play. He didn't practice yesterday. Generally, these guys who suffer a concussion, especially on a short week like Monday, aren't going to play. But I've also been taking some Nico Collins at ADP 30, sometimes with the last pick, because again, similar with the Deebo Samuel stuff last week, if he doesn't go, my swaps are going to be fine. And one little hack that I would recommend that I've been doing with my Nico Collins teams is I've been doing Nico Collins as part of 3 wide receiver builds because I want my swap from Nico to be to a running back. Because so many of these good running backs are going undrafted, I don't mind the Nico to a running back swap, whether that's Swift, Breece Hall, Rashad White, Kamara, Ramondre. Whereas if you have Nico as part of a 2 wide receiver build, he's going to have to swap to a wide receiver by necessity of starting 2 wide receivers. So that's one little thing I would do if you want to take on this Q tag risk with me, because if Nico does play, you know, Nico is going to be a top 15 ADP value. Like Nico would go ahead of Cortland Sutton if he's fully healthy. So I don't mind kind of just taking on that risk. Like I said, it's probably, you know, less than a 20% chance he plays, but because the swaps are so good and I see the running backs that don't get selected in my drafts, I've been kind of content to take Nico Collins as a 3rd wide receiver. And I think you could do the same thing with if you are a little spooked about, hey, what if Bucky comes back this week, which again, I don't think he will. They have a bye next week. But if you don't want to take on that risk with Rashad White, and you've noticed that Rashad White didn't get selected in your draft and you're picking in the 6th round, you can take Bucky Irving. And then if he doesn't play, you can swap to Rashad White. So those are some of the other considerations that I would be thinking about with these Q tags. But early week, I am just trying to get as many of these combos that I think won't be available later in the week. And I do feel pretty confident that Lamar will move up once he is ruled in. No, I did not redo my office. My main camera is giving me fits right now, and I need to restart my computer, but I was on a meeting right before this, and I didn't have time to restart. So we are rolling with my backup plan, which is my old Logitech webcam here. So you're just seeing more of my office and not my normal good lighting through my high def camera. So yes, sorry, you are not getting my best camera on today's stream. Was Bucky was officially ruled out? Okay, there you go. So you don't even have to mess with Bucky. Rashad White is going to be a big time riser in ADP. So Rashad White should not have an ADP of 34. This is RB 13. He's a top 10 RB in our ranks. He's going to project like a top 8 running back in most places. I would be trying to get as much Rashad White right now as you can. I really think by the end of the week, he will be up here closer to Cam Scatabo at around pick 22. I do really think in the next 48 hours, that's where he's headed. All right, let's do one regular draft here, and then we can maybe spin the wheel and get some fun builds. Yeah, I've done 15 drafts so far. We need 5 more if you guys want a little friends and family action here. Steven said, how about Dobbins and even Dowdle? So I'm struggling with Dobbins these days, and also Dowdle, right? The fact that backfield was a true 50-50 split with Chuba coming back, that just makes it a very, very hard sell for me. And I just think there are better places to go. I mean, the fact that you can get running backs like Ramondre, like, Kamara, who are going to get 70 to 80% of their backfield touches, I think I would prefer to be there. We can look at the Dobbins thing as well. The problem with the Dobbins stuff is he's entirely touchdown dependent. They're still using like Tyler Beatty on pass downs. We can look at his usage and snaps. He's at a 50% snap rate. Even though his rush attempts are solid, he's not getting any targets. He's only playing half the snaps. That's just like a tight needle to thread. Now it is the game of the week. If it shoots out, there's certainly appeal, but this game shot out last week, right? And he still is not getting home there in that offense. And then, of course, the situation with the Panthers, it's basically like the Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker situation where it's a straight split right down the middle. The Panthers want to save face with this massive contract they gave Chuba. And so we're going to have to deal with this. You see their utilization score, 56 for Chuba, 54% of the snaps. And then Dowdle just plummets from 88% of the snaps down to 46%. Chuba even outsnapped him last week. So the way I like to play these battle royales is I prefer to chase volume and workload with those late picks. And if I'm going for more of like a big play or someone who can get there on a single play, I'd prefer that to be a wide receiver. All right, let's grab Jamar Chase here. We do see James Cook go fourth here, which jumps his ADP just a little bit. And I'll happily grab Jamar Chase. I mean, Chase is coming off of a 23 target game here. Just insane. 23 targets for Jamar Chase. So he's absolutely cooking with Joe Flacco right now. I have no problem taking Jamar Chase here. Yeah, Dobbins against the Dallas D. I get it. Like, I get the matchup, but you know what? It was an awesome matchup last week. The Giants' run defense has been really bad as well. So it's more of a utilization thing and how Sean Payton is really stubbornly using a three backfield rotation right now. And I just think it's tough to get to in the six persons. I don't mind it as much in the 12s. All right, we are back on the clock. Josh Allen is here. Derrick Henry is here. Barkley is here. I do think Henry is a pretty big beneficiary to Lamar being back. Let me see if I can pull up this tweet that Hayden Winks had yesterday about how Derrick Henry's production really fluctuates based on the team total for the Ravens. Yeah, here's the tweet. I thought this was an interesting. So Ravens back to a 28.25 team total this week. The Derrick Henry Ravens splits by results. So if they're projected for 20 or fewer team points, Henry averages 10.8 half points per PPR. If they're projected for 21 to 31 points, he averages 20 half point PPR. And if they're projected for 32 or more points, which they aren't this week, 20.3. So just goes to show that the Derrick Henry production lives and dies based on the success of the entire offense. He has not been a guy historically who can get there in negative game scripts, in bad, situations. That's when they start using Justice Hill in those passing situations. So if the Ravens do roll here with Lamar back, I think it's exciting to get back on Derrick Henry here at pick 8. All right, we are back on the clock. One guy I've just been scooping up here, like when Tyler Warren is off the board, I really like George Kittle. I think George Kittle should be the tight end too. I know he had the goose egg last week, but I think that was more just volatility and randomness than anything else. He still ran a ton of routes, was out there for a ton of snaps. And I know I'm on the clock, but I just wanted to look at this again to see his participation. Yeah, 86% route participation. So I think that was a little noisy. I'm always happy to bet on his talent. And let's go ahead and just pull up Rachaad White here. I mentioned I want to be getting as much Rachaad White as possible. We can see which wide receiver I go with here as my wide receiver 2, but I'm going to go ahead and grab Rachaad White to start the 4th round out here. Yeah, and so I think I'm going to be extremely light on Cam Scatabo this week, assuming these ADPs hold. Tougher matchup for Scatabo versus the Giants. And I mean, when you can get some of these other guys who have just as good of workloads in better matchups, it's just going to be a tough click for me to get there on Scatabo. Lamar Jackson did go at pick 14 in this one. I do really like this stack that Josta did here out of the 2-hole. I think Zay Flowers is just a really strong selection this week. And I don't know. I always feel like Zay Flowers is a little disrespected in the markets, whether that was the season-long best ball market, in the battle royales. I think people always give him grief for not being like what they envision as a true alpha. But when you look at his workload, it really is elite. You can look at these routes. His targets per route run is solid. I mean, he had a 32% target share in week 6. He has a 30% target share on the season. I mean, that is an elite workload or target share there for an explosive player, solid utilization score. And, a lot of his dip in production has been tied to Cooper Rush at quarterback. So I'm excited to go back to Zay Flowers in this spot, and certainly nothing scary about the Bears secondary either. So we have a 2-1-1 here, which means I am going to have to figure out what I want to do at quarterback and at wide receiver here. We could play Chris Olave opposite Rachaad White is kind of a fun mini correlation, and then figure out what we want to do for our quarterback. Let's go ahead and grab Chris Olave. Dwayne was all over this in the utilization report these past couple of weeks, and then we finally saw the explosion in week 6 there, week 7. Pull up here on this Olave stuff, because it had really been, or we can talk about Olave after I make this last pick. So now I need a quarterback. I don't think if I'm going to go naked quarterback here, because I don't really want to go Flacco, Rattler, or the San Francisco, then I want to go naked quarterback, which means I'm going to be down here in the Daniel Jones, Drake May, Jackson Dart territory. Let's go ahead and do Daniel Jones versus Tennessee. He's a guy that's just going to be part of my portfolio every week. I mean, this is arguably the best offense in football. They always have really efficient outings. And Jonathan Taylor every other week seems to score 3 TDs, but the times he doesn't, I think Daniel Jones could really get going through the air. We also saw him get a rushing touchdown previously. So I like Daniel Jones naked, especially getting Josh Downs back. It's the kind of offense where they're probably not going to have like a pass catcher who wins out. Tyler Warren's the 1A, but then Pittman's and Downs and Alec Pierce will kind of all cannibalize each other. So I do think Daniel Jones is almost the perfect quarterback to run naked, because you think about the combo of, if he's scoring rushing touchdowns, that means Jonathan Taylor isn't. And the pass catchers, there's no true alpha. I do think Warren is kind of the clear 1A, but it's spread out enough that it's hard for, I think, the stacking partners to get home, because you really need, from a non-tight end position, the 20 plus points. And it's just hard for Pittman, Downs, and Pierce to do that when they are all a part of the offense. So naked Daniel Jones versus this really bad Tennessee team, that'll be a decent part of my quarterback plan this week. And this first team finishes out Daniel Jones, Derrick Henry, Rachaad White, Jamar Chase, Chris Olave, and George Kittle. So not a ton of correlation here outside of this Rachaad White, Chris Olave mini, but these are the kind of teams that I like to build here in the large BR. Let's get a challenge for this next draft. And as always, I'm happy to get some suggestions from you guys. I put a couple different ones on here, like a 100% drafted wide receiver with a sub 30% QB. So like in that team I just drafted, I could have taken, say, Joe Flacco with Jamar Chase, and that would have been an example of a 100% drafted wide receiver with a sub 30% QB. So I have a few like that, but we got a suggestion here from Steven. Draft only NFC, AFC South players, but you have one wild card pick in picks only 3 through 6. I think I'm confused by that last part. One wild card pick in pick. Okay, so you're saying in the first 2 rounds, I have to be NFC, AFC South, but you have one wild card pick in picks only 3 through 6. I feel like I could do an exclusive NFC, AFC South team. I think we can add that on. Pollard or Pacheco, both underachievers. Man. So I assume this is just like a regular start sit question. I think I lean Pacheco. They are huge home favorites versus the Commanders. We've seen his utilization creep up a good bit. That would be my lean there. The Titans team total is just not good this week. And I continue to think we're going to see more and more Tajay Spears. Yeah, Pacheco still, even with the PPR. All right, let's spin the wheel. And if any other suggestions trickle in here, I will happily add them. All right, this is going to be a low-owned double stack. And I don't have the Chrome tab shared, so you guys could hear the howl as suggested by Rob Bailey last week. But before I draft this one, I should show you guys one of my best teams last week was a low-owned double stack. And the reason I make the qualification for low-owned is because I really don't want to be in the business of doing too many double stacks because I am trying to aim for perfection. However, the times I'm willing to make that exception is when a lot of the pieces aren't being drafted. And I thought I had a really nice team brewing on Sunday in the early window because I had this Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith double stack. And so Jalen Hurts 82%, AJ Brown 72%, neither of them 100%, which is nice. But then the real kind of thing that made this double stack work was Devontae Smith at 8.9%. So I'm rolling in to the 4 p.m. window with 24 points from Hurts, 26 from AJ Brown, 28 from Devontae Smith. At this time, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are the two highest scoring wide receivers on the slate. And Jalen Hurts at 24 points, I think is like, the second or third highest QB score. So I'm feeling really good. And then it gets even better. I have Jonathan Taylor, 32.7 points. I have Trey McBride, 24.4 points, 5 touchdowns combined from those guys. And I'm sitting here thinking, all right, we can make a run at first place in the BR. And you want to know who my last piece was? Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, aka Bill, scores me only 3.7 points, which just nuked this team. It finishes in 134th place. If I have a Javonte Williams, if I have a DeAndre Swift on this team, it finishes in the top 5. So that just goes to show how thin the margins are here for these teams. You see Javonte Williams scored 18.3 points there. And a real disappointment to not be able to get paid off on this double stack. So that's the reason in this I said a low owned double stack. So let's hop in a draft here and see if we can pinpoint one that I think makes sense. And I'll also say that double stack is even unique for how I would traditionally like to play it. I would prefer when doing a double stack to have the double include the tight end, because again, the barrier that you have to cross for a tight end to matter is just so much lower. And again, it varies slate by slate, but you can win slates with a 13, a 14, a 15 point score from a tight end. It's very rare when you can win a slate with less than 20 points from your wide receiver. So I got it home on that Devontae and AJ Brown because they both went for 20 plus. But typically, I think it's a little easier to have a wide receiver go for 25 and your tight end go for 15, as opposed to both wide receivers putting up those scores. Obviously, the Eagles, though, are just such a unique team in that Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are mega talents who can pop off for big games. So I think for this one, with a low-owned double stack, I am going to probably try to include the tight end here. And we'll see if we can find some that meet the qualification. So, Star Tours here says Baker and Flacco. Now, the reason Baker wouldn't for me is just because 2 of the 3 pieces are all very popular, right? You're going to have Baker, who's drafted in most of these contests, obviously Igbuka. So that really means Cade Otton is the only thing. And this isn't to say don't do any Baker doubles, but for this specific prompt and what I generally like to do for double stacks, I would like it to be low owned. Now, it's funny that I have the 101 because one of the ideas I had was Drake London with Michael Penix and Kyle Pitts, because Kyle Pitts and Michael Penix are not being drafted 100% of the time. But because I have the 101, I got to take Bijan here, and we can come up with another idea here for a double stack. Appreciate that, Joey. Joey says a little behind on the stream, but that's an amazing Nico note on the 3 wide receiver build. Trying to think about swaps more, but the 3 wide receiver piece is a great note. Yeah, feel free to use that. Like I said, I don't think Nico plays, but you don't really lose anything when he doesn't. All right, we're going to start with Bijan. So now let's start thinking about what could be a low owned double stack. And like I said, I would prefer for it to include the tight end. So we are probably looking down here. Mark Andrews with Zay and Lamar doesn't really qualify. The Bo Nix thing gets really gross. Evan Ingram just does not look appealing. I think I found the one I want to do, though. I think it would be Hunter Henry, Drake May, and Stephon Diggs. Look at the cumulative ownership on these 3 here. Where's Diggs? So you have May at 35, you have Diggs at 34.8, you have Hunter Henry at 35.7. We've really seen Stephon Diggs' utilization start to pick up here. And Dwayne actually talked about these two in his piece. He's up 9 points over the last 4 games and has a utilization score of 76 over that span. He's been hovering between 64% and 82% route participation. But he has a 32% target share, and that means his historical comps have averaged 15 points per game, right in line with his 15.1 over that span. Diggs offers extensive upside should he eventually play a full-time role with budding superstar Drake May. So this is one of those spots where I didn't like clicking Stephon Diggs when he had an ADP of 20 a couple weeks ago against the Saints. Like, I feel like that is a pretty hefty price tag to pay. But now that he's all the way down here at 34.8, this is the spot where I think a really low owned double stack here makes sense. Hunter Henry, he's been hovering 4 targets, 3 targets, 5 targets. You're really just looking for one of these explosions like he had against Pittsburgh a few weeks back, or kind of just scoring a touchdown and having 50 or so yards. We could probably still get home with that. Let's see, what do we want to do here? I'm definitely going to take Ibuka here. We know we're going to do Hunter Henry. So I think it's just taking our second wide receiver. And I think Bijan with Barkley is a nice way to play this. Ramsey says Flacco, Higgins, Fant. That certainly qualifies. Let me look at what was Fant's utilization last week. I don't want to immediately wave that one. I also think you could do the Flacco T Higgins Chase, because only Chase is going to be 100% drafted. Let me double check on Higgins ADP here. Yeah, 31.5. I guess that's going to fall in more of probably 40% ownership range, kind of based on historical stuff. But let me take a look at the Fant stuff and see if he's on the menu or not. Tight end here. I know that they were using a little Tanner Hudson as well, which could be a bit of an issue, but let's check it out. Noah Fant here. Did see his route participation jump last week. He went from 48% to 76%. Not a huge target share, 11%. Was getting used a little bit here in the end zone, 25%. But that's not a bad utilization score there at 66. How many targets did he have here last week? 4 targets, 44 yards, and 1. You know what, Ramsey? I don't hate that call. I don't hate that at all. This is a good one as well, Steven. Dart and Wandell, I was looking at those two. I like them. It is kind of crazy that both Bellinger and Theo Johnson were such a big part of the game plan. It's unfortunate that isn't more consolidated. I do want to look and see what the exact split was with those two. So you had Theo Johnson, 97% of the snaps, 21% of the targets, and then Bellinger, 49% and 14%. So it's definitely Theo as far as the opportunity, 76 utilization score to only, or 78 for Bellinger. It's just Bellinger's role in the end zone was huge. 100% of the end zone targets there, and Theo Johnson wasn't getting looked at in the red zone. So it's kind of like a gross split, but I don't mind that call. All right, so we will grab our Diggs and May stack here. And so we have Drake May, Bijan, Barkley, Ibuka, Diggs. Pat says, do you plan to scroll to any of the wide receivers past Waddle this week in the six mans? It's a good question. Looking at these names, Garrett Wilson is in the similar boat as Nico, where I don't think he's going to play, but you can click and swap. I do like Wan'Dale Robinson, Pat. He's someone on my radar. 12 target game last week. And we just saw, the Giants, Jordan Addison had a really big game against them. Not too interested in Shakir. Not too interested in Tez, not interested in Mims, a little bit of interest in Rashid Shaheed. This is a good matchup for the entire Saints passing game, and Tampa Bay is a bit of a run funnel. A little bit of interest in DJ Moore, same thought, like 100% drafted Rome Dunze, and then DJ Moore is going to go undrafted. A little interest in him, but man, yeah, there is not much out here. Not much that I really see beyond that. I could see a sprinkle of Troy Franklin. He had another big target game, 10 targets, game of the week. I could see a sprinkle of Alec Pierce. I know Ian is really on him this week. Tennessee giving up a lot of big plays. He's coming off of a 10 target game. But all of these guys I'm talking about, I probably would have on 1 to 2 teams and not big positions. So yeah, I think it's a good note. And it's just not as good of a scroll week for wide receiver. And I'd rather be kind of doing my scrolls at running back. All right. We are going to be able to get Hunter Henry here. So this team is in the books. We had our low owned double stack. And if these ADPs hold, Drake May will be, sub 30%. Stephon Diggs will be sub 30%, and Henry will be sub 30%. So not always a fan of double stacks, but in the situations where I am, I like getting them at really low field exposure. Let's spin again here. Let's see. Draft Board says, is Colston Loveland this week's Aronde Gadsden? That's kind of a fun comp. Let's also check in on his usage here. I know it's been upticking a little bit. So last week, Cole Kmet, and you can see here, Cole Kmet's usage has been dropping precipitously here, 88%, 33%, 22%. Meanwhile, Colston Loveland over that span has gone 17, 45, 63. So these guys are like ships passing in the sea as far as usage. He had a 24% targets per route run, 17% target share. And Loveland had 4 targets. Ravens are nothing special against tight ends. I think this is the second time on stream you guys have given me some good sleeper tight end candidates. I think Noah Fant and Colston Loveland, I think they're in the mix for some scroll down stuff. I think Caleb, similar to that double stack we just did with Drake May, I think like Caleb, DJ Moore, and Loveland is a pretty fun one if you wanted to get off the board in a really good matchup. And I did not know this as well. So thank you, Draft Board. Mentions Kmet picked up a back injury as well. So yeah, if you fully removed Kmet, I mean, Loveland, I think, would immediately become a top 8 play on the slate when you factor in the usage bump in the matchup. I like that. Yeah, I think you guys are onto something there. Now, of course, the fly in the ointment with all of this stuff is just Caleb looked atrocious last week. So there is that. But this Ravens secondary really banged up. I mean, we can go over to the DVP stuff that I always like to look at, just trying to get a quick overview of how these teams are allowing points. If we look at Fantasy Boost, the Ravens are top 5 in Fantasy Boost allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Let's see how they are against tight ends. They're not quite as bad against tight ends, it looks like. Yeah, more middle of the road, slightly above average against tight ends. They definitely struggle more against wide receivers. You can see here, half points PPR allowed. They're the 3rd most in the league, behind only the Cowboys and the Colts there. So I think the Loveland shout is a good one, though. I should also mention, guys, and I've mentioned this, I think, on a few shows. If you guys have been reading the Fantasy Life newsletter or heard other shows, you can get Fantasy Life Plus for free for an entire year. And it legitimately sounds too good to be true. I promise it's not. All you have to do is download the Comet browser and follow these steps. If you just download the Comet browser and then prove that you downloaded it, you'll get a coupon code for free Fantasy Life Plus for an entire year. So that'll go all the way till next October. It'll cover you through draft season. You can get all the utilization report, the league sync, all of our 2026 draft content, like everything Fantasy Life has. You can literally get it for free. So just go take advantage of that offer. I think it's going away soon here. Yeah, 10 days until it goes away. All the instructions are in the link I just dropped, fantasylife.com/Comet. If you want to get the details, you create your Fantasy Life account, you download Comet, and then you redeem your subscription here. All right, let's spin the wheel and do another draft. Okay, I'd already spun the wheel. I forgot about this. So I'm going to do a skinny stack plus a bring back. Skinny stack plus a bring back. So again, I kind of want to be picky with what game environment and what kind of ownership I'm doing this with. You know, I think like one that I wouldn't necessarily want to do would be something that was 100% drafted. So an example of this would be like, I probably don't want to do like Bo Nix to Cortland Sutton with CeeDee Lamb bring back. And again, it's not to say that that's bad. It's just saying when it does hit, that is on every single other roster in the contest, or it was selected in every other single draft in the contest, and that there's going to be tons of combos of Lamb, Nix, and Sutton. So I'm going to try to get a little creative with this. I have one that I think might work, but let's see how the first couple of rounds go, and then we can see if we can do a skinny stack with a bring back. If you guys are not subscribed to this channel, please do subscribe. Fantasy Life YouTube channel. I just got done listening to a couple of shows on the channel with Dwayne and Ian doing a utilization rundown, Kendall and Ian doing a rundown of all the matchups, all kinds of good stuff here on the Fantasy Life YouTube channel. Look at this. I thought I was going to get a Jonathan Taylor share, and lo and behold, Jonathan Taylor goes 101. So we're going to do another Bijan team here. Speaking of big fantasy boosts, I feel like this is probably the biggest or the what's the phrase I'm using? The worst kept secret in fantasy right now is how bad the Dolphins are. But it is funny though. You look at this, the Bengals give up the biggest fantasy boost to opposing running backs. The Dolphins are fourth, partly because the Dolphins were a little stingier at the beginning of the year. I think Jonathan Taylor only had like 14 points against them in week 1. Which is just like a funny note. This Dolphins run defense has been historically bad over the past 3 weeks. The least amount of points they have given up this year to the running back position was to Jonathan Taylor, the number 1 running back in football. So funny quirk there, but also a reminder that Breece Hall gets the biggest fantasy boost here of all running backs in their matchup. All right, I'm not going to take Josh Allen because I'm going to do a skinny stack with a bring back. I just like when I take Josh Allen, I prefer to do it naked. There's not a lot of bills that I would consider doing that with. I guess I could do something like Josh Allen to Dalton Kincaid with a Ted Arroyo bring back, but I don't know. That's just not really speaking to me here. Let's take Tyler Warren this time though. Last time we did Barkley there. Let's take Tyler Warren. Star Tour says, any strategic thoughts on how to draft missing those top 3 running backs? You know what? Like, I don't think there's obviously those 3 running backs are the top plays on the slate, but I think when you're getting an alpha wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb or Jamar Chase, I think you can compete with those rosters. And think about it this way, Star Tours. The way the draft board shakes out this week, the strength of the pool is at running back. So if you think about 2v2s, what do you think's easier to win with, a round 1 running back and a 6th round wide receiver, or a round 1 wide receiver and a 6th round running back? Because I can go Jamar Chase and Rachaad White right now versus your, Bijan Robinson and T Higgins or whatever. So I kind of like the 2v2s of the wide receiver early. So that's just would be kind of like the counter argument to being like, hey, if you don't get a top 3, push the plane, log out, etc. I certainly don't think that's the case this week. All right, I'm cooking up an idea for this low-owned skinny stack and a bring back. So this is what I'm thinking. I took A.J. Brown here. We went Bijan, A.J. Brown, Tyler Warren. I'm thinking we do that dart and Wan'Dale Robinson skinny we talked about. Wait, where is he? Okay, I was like, why is Wan'Dale Robinson not showing up? Yeah, so Wan'Dale Robinson, good target earner. Nothing scary about the Eagles matchup. AJ Brown is like the exact kind of guy that you do want to do mini correlations with, right? Just because he is so big play pilled. You know, AJ Brown either disappears or he's hitting for massive touchdowns. So he's the kind of guy that can speed stuff up. So I do want to be like really intentional if I am doing bringbacks. And last week I did have a lot of like AJ Brown with Addison. I had a lot of Devontae Smith with Addison. I was mixing and matching those big play wide receivers. And so I think the Dart, Wan'Dale Robinson, AJ Brown combo kind of fits that bill a little bit. And then the other pick that I would just be making is who I want to do at my running back. So I see Rachaad White is already off the board. I see Breece Hall is already off the board. Geez, all of these guys I'm liking here are gone. I think I will probably take Javonte as my running back here. I do like Swift as well. But let's do Javonte on this one. I mean, this Dart Wan'Dale Robinson combo is already going to be very unique. And then this is looks like there's a lot of people that still need quarterback, wide receiver. I don't think either of them should get selected, but I think what we'll do, I think we'll take Wan'Dale Robinson, and if for some reason Dart goes, we still get that that mini correlation we wanted. Yeah, but this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if these drafters are watching the stream or whatever, or if people are starting to use more projections, but you're going to see Rachaad White and Breece Hall start to inch up over the next 48 hours. Trying to see any other interesting trends in these drafts. Lamar continuing to go kind of right or around ADP. You see George Kittle moving up a little bit here. Rachaad White, obviously a big jump there. I'm going to guess this drafter, yeah, grabs Devontae Smith to pair with Hurts. So as long as Tack here, I'm going to guess Tack goes with Daniel Jones. Or Mayfield. Probably Mayfield. Play that. Yeah, Mayfield there. All right. Yeah, no. I'm I got to get my quarterback here. So I'm going to get my unique skinny stack of Dart to Wan'Dale Robinson with the AJ Brown bring back here. What's up, Jordan? GM. As always, if you guys want to watch me draft more Battle Royale teams today at 3 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube channel, the Peter Overzet YouTube channel, I will be drafting with people from the chat. So it's called the Battle Royale Bash. If you're a YouTube member on my channel, you drop a hashtag in the chat. Only YouTube members are allowed to comment in the chat. I spin a wheel, and if your name comes up, like Jordan's has, I think twice now, you hop on stream. I pay for the draft, and I get to learn about you. I get to pick your brain on your takes for the weekend. We draft a team, and if it does well, we split the winnings. All right, let's see here. Do you guys want to do one? Why don't we finish off with one 12-person draft? Unless we can't get this filled. If we can't get this filled, then I might bail on it. 8 people. All right, this might take too long. All right, I'll give us a second. We'll see if we can get it finished. Yep, we have lulls on my channel as well. Lots to talk about in the world of sports betting in NBA. Lots of craziness over there. All right, looks like we might be able to fill this. We got 5 people. So if you guys aren't familiar, this is the $25 live final qualifier. Basically, every single week, this qualifier is running. There's 5,200 entrants. Top 3 get $10,000 and a trip to Kansas City to compete in the live final, which will take place week 14. It'll have a $1 million prize pool with $200,000 to first place. It's a very competitive tournament. It's also a cruel tournament because it's top 3 or bust, basically. Yes, fourth gets $1,000, but all the equity in this contest is in getting first place or one of the top 3 places in locking in that trip to Kansas City and getting to draft. It's a super fun experience. Every qualifier will get to do 3 drafts as well, which is fun. It's not just one draft and done, so you can kind of mix and match your exposures. And yeah, I have been fortunate enough to attend the previous Dog Bowls, not as a participant, but just as a friend of Underdog. And it's an awesome time here. I don't do a ton of these entries. It can be a bit of a bankroll drain because, you know, most of the time you're not qualifying. And if you fire a lot of bullets, that can bleed your bankroll. But I like to put in a couple of entries a week. Just it's fun to compete. And the 12-person drafts do offer a completely different, you know, strategic landscape. You know, we were talking about some of those guys like Noah Fant and Colson Loveland, some of the fringe wide receivers. It's hard to get to them in the 6 persons. You're just giving up so much projection. But in these 12 persons, you can really get down there and, you know, scrape the bottom of the barrel when 72 players are getting drafted instead of 36. All right, Pat's going to hop in. Looks like we need 3 more. Sometimes these can be a little tricky to fill earlier in the week. It's often just kind of the sickos who are in here. I can show you guys the team that won the Dog Bowl last week. So there was a Bo Nix team, obviously. So Bo Nix scored 40 points last week. So Bo Nix was obviously going to be on the winning lineup. This team was just such a wagon. Bo Nix, 40 points, Jonathan Taylor, 32, Olave, 24, Keenan Allen, 23, Swift, 20, and then Ferguson, 18.4. So Bo Nix with the Ferguson bring back and just smashes everywhere. This kid, Awin, he's now won 2 seats to the Dog Bowl. So he'll have 6 drafts. He had Bo Nix, Quinshon Judkins, Kamara, Olave, Devontae Smith, and Trey McBride. And then Sicko Dank had Jackson Dart, naked Jackson Dart, Judkins, Swift, Keenan, Devontae, Jake Ferguson. Looks like we filled this draft though. So let's hop in and see what we got. We got the 106 here. Looks like we got some people in chat. Pat, Jordan, Star Tours. All right. I'll show you guys. I drafted 1 Dog Bowl this morning. Let's see. I don't know if I liked it. What did I do? I did a Dak to CD stack. I did get Breece Hall and Kamara. I had Kyle Pitts at tight end, and then in the last round, I did Troy Franklin as my my bring back to the Dak to CD stack. So I don't mind that team. Breece, Kamara, Pitts. Lone bullet for the week. I like it. Do the 1 bullet, get a little sweat. You can hawk the leaderboard, save your bankroll. All right, 106. Let's see here. I did Lamb in the one before. I guess we could mix it up and go with a running back here instead. We'll see what Jordan does. We have Achane, Henry, Barkley. He goes Barkley, which I certainly think is valid. What do I want to do here? I think we could do Achane or Cook. I just did Henry on that one team. I just have so little faith in the Dolphins right now. Let's play, let's go James Cook here. The Bills are going to, they're going to score a lot of points. And the real question is, do they come from Josh Allen or do they come from James Cook? So if it's a James Cook week, we'll be happy about it, at least on this team. Let me see what the Bills team total is this week. 26.75 team total. So the ones over 25, the Falcons have a 26-point team total. The Ravens have a 27.75 team total. Bills 26.75. Bengals 25.25. Eagles barely clear 25.5. Bucks 25.5. Denver 27. The Colts have a 30.75 team total. Yeah, so some good ones there for sure. But yeah, 26.75. I think that is what, the third highest on the slate for the Bills, behind only Baltimore and Denver. I guess they're tied with Denver and just below the Colts. All right, let me get the full draft board up here so we can see this better. There we go. CeeDee Lamb falls to 9. There, you do see drafters be a little bit more running back hungry in here. And look at this. I mean, I was talking about the Rachaad White ADP movement. These 12-person drafts, which are going to, I would call them, that's where the sharp money's at. So they're going to be more representative of like fair value for these players. You see Rachaad White go at pick 14. So he's like ADP 30 right now in the 6-persons and goes at pick 14 here. So let's see. It'll be hard for me to pass on Breece Hall if he is here. Otherwise, I might pivot to a wide receiver. The question is which one? I do really like, so Hurts goes. I can't pass on Breece Hall here. As much as I like the depth here at running back, it is going to get wiped out a decent bit. And it's a pretty big tier gap for me this week after Breece Hall. So let's grab Breece Hall and we will start James Cook and Breece Hall here. And then we can kind of build out maybe a fun stack after that. Yeah, Hot says us gets CeeDee Lamb and Josh Allen. Nice value on Allen there. Judkins is an interesting one. You're paying a little bit of a premium coming off of his 3 touchdown game. Not the greatest matchup versus the Patriots, but he's been pretty good. I get it. Rome is another tricky one this week. His production has dipped, but his utilization has still been solid. And I really like that matchup. I was on Rome last week. Didn't get there, but I don't see any reason to shy away from it. Man, yeah, J.K. Dobbins going at pick 23 here in the 12-persons. Pat Moore grabs Jonathan Taylor and Olave. A.J. Brown goes at pick 27. I'm going to gray out running back because I am done there. We'll see what Jordan does. But yeah, I'm going to go wide receiver here. No need to take quarterback. No need to take tight end here. Jordan takes Zay. Good pick. I'm going to take Devontae on this one. George Pickens also solid, but Devontae, I think, just a cut ahead for me maybe. I'll have to think through that one. What do you guys like, Pickens or Devontae this week? I think it's close. Probably Pickens projects a little bit better. But man, when Devontae hits, he just hits in a big way. I guess Pickens does too. Maybe I should have gone Pickens. What are you guys doing with Waddle this week, man? He's like the classic, him and Achane. And I guess Achane's so different because it's just a lot easier for him to touch the ball because it's a handoff instead of requiring Tua to throw him the ball. But man, Waddle's the one where it projects well, but it's just so gross. It's just so hard to get there for me. But you do see here, if you eschew running back in the first few rounds, you have to settle for guys like Chase Brown, Kamara, which again isn't the end of the world, but it does just go to illustrate how thirsty people are for running backs in this draft. Seeing if there's any other correlation stuff I'd want to dial up here at 4-7. James Cook, Breece Hall, Devontae Smith. T. Higgins is already gone. Chase Brown gone. So nothing really with that Jets-Bengals game. Buffalo, Carolina. Nothing really. Pittman goes. It is hard in this with these ADPs to get both Diggs and May, and Diggs does go. You know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to get my Wan'Dale here. Let's get that Wan'Dale Robinson, Devontae Smith, and the BR. We did the correlation with A.J. Brown in Wan'Dale. We don't get A.J. Brown in this one. Let's go ahead and do Devontae Smith and Wan'Dale. Pat got sniped on Tez there with Baker. You can always settle for Kate Otten. Jordan says Dolphins could be this week's Raiders with Bijan Algier running 40 times and Dolphins 35 plays. Yeah, I mean, the Dolphins are just the ultimate dumpster fire. There's organizational dysfunction. There's injuries. There's coach and quarterback not on the same page. Really disgusting stuff. Really disgusting stuff. Yeah, the double with Baker is certainly nice. You can still do Sterling Shepard. Certainly not as fun. Rico Dowdle to Jordan here. Dak goes unstacked because Hot Scissors had Lamb with Allen. So obviously he was off the board there. And then where's the Pickens drafter? Where's Pickens? Pickens drafter. Interesting. Pickens drafter goes Daniel Jones over Dak. That's kind of interesting. Jawan Jennings. I feel like I'm so scarred by Jawan Jennings. Like the is he hurt, isn't he hurt thing, the beefing with Shanahan. What was his utilization like last week? Let me check in on old Jawan Jennings. Yeah, so okay. Yeah, back up to a 93% route rate, 27% targets per route run, 30% of the targets. All right. Maybe come back into my good graces, Jawan Jennings. What do you have? 7 targets, 4 receptions, 31 yards. Drake May still on the board. Caleb goes. Man, I don't. Star Tours, I don't know if I can trust you not to take Jackson Dart. I don't think I can trust you, bro. Because you were going to go Caleb. No. What are you going to do? You going to do Flacco? Whatever. All these tight ends are the same. I'm just going to get Jackson Dart. I can't live without Jackson Dart on this team. I need Dart to Devontae. I figured you did, but just going to get my guy. Dart to, so here's the team, and I'll have a tight end at the end. Jackson Dart to Wan'Dale Robinson, Devontae Smith, bring back James Cook, Breece Hall. Let's see which teams have been awful against tight ends. The Bengals, little Mason Taylor love. Little Mason Taylor, huh? 5 target. I don't know. I could see it. Let's put that in the idea box. The Colts play the Titans. Anyone a little Chiga Conquo love? I can't do it. I can't touch Titans. Panthers. That's kind of a mess at tight end. Steelers aren't on the main slate. Jags on bye. Bucks play the Saints. Jawan Johnson does see a target uptick here with 7. He goes from 4 and 2 targets back up to 7, 5 for 79. I don't mind that one. By like pure projection, Dalton Schultz is going to project really well if both Christian Kirk and Nico Collins are out. I think that's in the idea box. Mark Andrews, just as part of this overall game environment, he goes. We talked about Colston Loveland a little bit. And I could also just double Jackson Dart. Is that the play? Do we just double Jackson Dart? All right, let me get your guys' votes. Who should I do at tight end here? Who should we select at tight end? I think Schultz is the projection play. Taylor goes. I think it's Schultz or Theo here. The number of drafters behind me, there's only one that needs a tight end. I don't think they're going to take Theo. So I think what I can do is I think I can go Schultz and then just swap to whoever I like the most if for some reason Schultz doesn't go. But Schultz should be fine. All right. We're going to pass on the correlation there, and we're going to go Dalton Schultz because he's projecting very well. All right. Jackson Dart, James Cook, Breece Hall, Devontae Smith, Wan'Dale Robinson, Dalton Schultz. We squeezed in a dog bowl 12-person draft here on the draft stream. Appreciate all you guys in the chat and who are tuning in live. For those of you watching on playback, we appreciate you guys as well. I'm here every Thursday at noon Eastern, drafting teams, talking strategy. Also, make sure you guys don't miss my column that is up on Fantasy Life. I do a weekly Underdog column with some thoughts. This week, talked about small field strategy, my favorite stack, the best running back sleepers, in a sneaky vomit stack. We didn't even talk about it on the show. So I'm going to make you guys check out the article to see that one. And yeah, if you want to watch me draft more teams, 3 p.m. today for the Battle Royale Bash on my channel. And then tomorrow, 3 p.m. Eastern with the Badge Bros. I do a show called Off and on the Clock, which is a comprehensive preview of the Underdog slate. So tune into those. Check out Fantasy Life. Get Fantasy Life Plus for free at fantasylife.com/comment. Thank you to our sponsor, Xfinity. Check them out. And we'll see you guys next time on The Jam.